All right, thank you very much for joining here, Yoav. I'm
No
very happy to
problem.
see you here to just talk about your major and your
Yeah.
internship experience. Yeah, let's get to it. Could you briefly introduce
Yes.
yourself to the audience?
So my name is Yoav. I am currently a senior in Purdue University. It's in Indiana, and I'm studying aerospace engineering.
Cool.
Yeah.
Aerospace engineering is your major.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just briefly talk about what the aerospace engineering is like?
Sure. Aerospace engineering is kind of a mixture between air and space. You basically get to decide. I'm not sure if this is true for every school, but you learn general engineering in the beginning, and then you sort of specialize towards the end. So I'm specializing in attitude control, which is basically how to control the orientation of satellites in space.
Wow.
Yeah, and how to launch them, etc. Maneuver between planets. But you can also learn how to build planes, work on engines, and you could also, delve into something that's more of a general mechanical engineering field. It's very general knowledge. One of my favorite things about engineering is that you kind of learn how to learn. So you can apply the knowledge, even if you're very specialized, you can apply it to other things.
So yeah, I think it's pretty cool because honestly, not gonna lie, when I hear aerospace engineering, it just sounds very intellectual, you know?
Yeah, that's part of the problem. We get a lot of hate.
A lot of hate.
It's really not that hard. It's not.
You think so?
I mean, I don't want to sound.
Okay, smart guy.
No. It's not that different. It's just got a big name. So.
Okay, so it's just like an engineering, but you think it's just the name that kind of makes.
Yeah, I mean, everyone says it's rocket science. I'm gonna be honest. I think like chemistry was harder. Like, no,
Wow.
I don't know if that's true for
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
but it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
You have to like math a little bit.
Mm.
Not everyone does,
Right.
but you have to do a lot of it. So make sure you don't hate it fully.
So I guess if you were to give a recommendation for some high school students who may be interested in aerospace engineering, obviously you have to be okay with math, right? If you hate math, maybe it's not a good idea.
I think I know a lot of people who aren't the biggest fans of math and weren't good at it, and they still succeed. I think you just have to be willing to learn and accept that it's a necessary part of the whole engineering bubble. You don't have to love it. That's not all it is. I mean, in my opinion, engineering is basically problem solving and applied math. Is what it is.
By just hearing that, I feel like it's very specific compared to like finance, right? Like finance, I feel like if someone were to say finance, I feel like there's like many different ways that they can go into.
Yeah.
But I feel like aerospace is kind of more limited in a way.
You're correct. It's a very niche subject, and that's part of the. I guess I haven't started working yet, but from what I understand, it is part of the risk that you come in when you specialize so much that it's a little more difficult to leave that branch. But if you are pretty set that you want to work in space, you want to work on airplanes, you're good. You have a very good degree for it. But it is definitely not hard to venture out, especially if you pick up some skills along the way, which I think one of the most important skills at the moment is learning how to code. And you learn how to code in aerospace engineering, and that can be applied to pretty much anything else, I
Wow.
think.
I didn't know that you had to learn how to code as well.
Yeah, so when you're solving problems in the beginning, you do it all by hand, but as things get more complex, there's only a certain amount of time before you
Right.
have to rely on the computer to do things for you.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it is less math. It's more,
Right.
how do I solve this problem, and how do I make the computer do all the boring stuff? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's really interesting. Let's get into like what are some routes that you can take as a aerospace engineering major student?
Okay, so at my school, you have specializations. So you can either do more space-oriented stuff or more airplane type things. Because the technical term for the whole major, it's aerospace, it's aeronautical and astronautical engineering. So astronautical is space, and then aeronautical is air. You can even work on boats if you want, because little known fact, with water and air, it's basically the same thing, just different numbers. So you can work on planes, like I said, you can work for NASA, you can work for the defense industry, which is the government. You can work for Lockheed Martin, it's a big company. Raytheon is another one. Yeah, but from what I've seen applying to things, you can pretty much work wherever you want, mostly in engineering.
So you said there are the space part and the air part. What is kind of like your preference if you were to choose one?
So I am specializing in control dynamics in space.
Space.
So that part is what I've always been interested in ever since a young age, and it's why I chose the major. But I know plenty of people who love airplanes and choose the major. A lot of my friends are pilots, actually.
Wow, like driving pilot.
Yeah, they fly planes. It's a lot of overlap. They find it interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you have been interested in space for a very long time, since at a young age.
Yeah.
When we talked about your internship last time, was it also kind of related to like space?
Not necessarily. Freshman year, I did this living and learning community is what they call it. I know a lot of schools have them. You basically live in a dorm, and everyone in that dorm is doing the same sort of courses as you, and then you work together on a project. So in my case, we were working for a government researcher, Sandia National Labs in New Mexico, and we were analyzing flight paths. So that wasn't space-oriented, but that was still aero. And then the last 2 summers, I worked at a startup that makes an electric flying vehicle. So that's not entirely space-oriented, but it's a lot smaller of a field. I didn't have as many opportunities in that realm, so I just ended up working in something that is not my ultimate goal, but it'll help me get there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about, because I really liked your second internship you had. It's pretty interesting. Electrical flying vehicle, right? Yeah, can you like just talk about that experience?
Sure. I worked at a startup, and the whole premise of the vehicle is that it will be a small 4-seater plane, and it will be electric. And that's because a lot of planes these days are trying to become more eco-friendly. And the whole point of the plane is that it's also a VTOL aircraft, which stands for vertical takeoff and landing. So it's sort of a hybrid between a plane and a helicopter. It has 4 different rotors pointing up and wings. But the thing I enjoyed the most about it is that it's very unique. You don't get that experience working at a big company like Boeing or Airbus, where you're just a small cog in a machine. I think being a part of a smaller company doing something unique is a good experience.
Or some of the unique, is there any like a memorable experience you consider kind of unique?
Yeah, so the thing that was really cool is that we basically all worked in a big open room warehouse, like an airplane hangar, and we had the prototype there, which was awesome because I got to see it all the time. There was a lot of testing, you could see the rotors, you could see all the machinery, which was awesome.
Right.
And I got to do a lot of testing. I wrote code for the control software, so what stabilizes the plane, and I got to actually test it, which was awesome. Yeah,
that's very cool. So you said you worked at a startup, right? And how did you get to hear about that position?
So it's a little more, I guess, off the regular path. Most internship offers that I received, I got through the school. We have career fairs. Very important you go to those. It's usually not the most fun to stand. Depending on where you go to school, it's either very hot or very cold. I had to do both and talk to people. But it's worth it. You get a lot of connections, which is, in my opinion, the most important thing. Out of better than having a good GPA or a lot of experience is important, but I think more important than the GPA is talking and having connections. So the way I got it was I spoke to a guy at my career fair who worked at a big company, and then he knew some guy who really liked my resume, and I told him about my passion for controls and electric vehicles, and he was like, you should check this out. And there was a company with like 30 people, so I was the only intern, which honestly, if I could change one thing, I think a lot of my friends had a lot of fun when there were other interns there, So that was the one maybe downside, is that I was the only one my age there. So
Right.
it wasn't the best because I was in a different area,
Mm.
but it was a good experience.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Your aerospace engineering
Hmm.
major, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of tips and maybe recommendations that you would give to some high school students who
Yeah.
are planning on choosing
Mhm.
that major. So yeah, let's just talk about that.
I think all of the advice I will give is applicable for all the engineering types. I think aerospace is a lot more theoretical than, let's say, mechanical or chemical engineering. But the thing that's true for across all engineering is that it's a lot of work, and you have to be prepared for it. If you think, high school is a lot of work, it is. Don't get me wrong, but it's a lot more in college. But the nice thing about it is it's relatively gradual. It gets harder and harder as time progresses, but you get used to it, and you have to be prepared. I don't want to scare anyone off. You just have to know what you're getting into. It's a lot of work, but it's totally doable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be scared, but don't expect it to be easy. I'd say.
Yeah, I think it's a great advice because obviously college is not easy,
Right.
Once you're determined to get into college, I think that there is certain expectation that you have to know before coming into college. Like, you're not coming into college just to hang out and party. You come into college to learn and really get experience that is crucial, which you can only get in college.
Yeah.
And obviously it's gonna be hard, but I think it's important you mentioned that it's also doable. Like, it's not like it's impossible, right?
Yeah, it's very doable, and I think a big important thing is you have to make sure you have free time to do things you like. If you like studying, then all the power to you. You're gonna have a lot of fun in college, but it's very important to not only study because you get burnt out very quick.
Yes.
Looking at books and homework all day is very challenging. So you have to make sure you have time and you make friends. It's very important.
Yeah.
Especially people in your classes, because then you could study with them, which is much better than studying alone, I'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard. It's a lot of work, but don't be scared. It's very doable.
Cool. Yeah.
And very fulfilling. If you like the topics, it's the best way to experience it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The fact that we were able to get a chance to talk about like aerospace engineering, I think even just me, I've never really had much chance to learn about engineering, but it was cool to, it was just really cool to talk about it. And hopefully this information that many students get is informational. And I hope that once they get to our position, they can do the same, helping the other students as well.
I agree.
So thank you so much for joining our interview today,
No
Yoel.
problem.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Yo.
And we'll be right back.
Yes.